This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Riker tries to buy a bridge?
Hello, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that one end is fixed and the other one is in constant motion, therefore making it completely useless for all intents and purposes, except for one really fun episode that we'll get to in several years. My name is Gepwin, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Dr. Isix.
Hi!
And we've hit the price, which I think no one would remember if it weren't for Voyager.
Kinda, yeah. Maybe not remember the episode, but remember some of the random visuals, I suppose.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it when I was younger because I ignored the romantic subplot, but now that I've watched it again as an adult, the romantic subplot is not in fact a subplot, it is just the plot.
Yep.
And the part that I liked was the subplot, which there's not very much of.
Indeed. A lot of romancing stuff, then something interesting happens, and then back to awkward dinner conversation.
Yeah, very awkward. So awkward.
But I will give them points for having a Troy episode, because they really kind of needed to do more of those that weren't just her having a weird connection to an alien and just having that be the whole thing.
Yeah, now we have a weird connection to a boy. Yeah. And that's the whole thing.
He's only the same kind of alien that she is, so,
Yeah, good job. This episode was written by Hannah Lewis Shearer, who we've talked about before because of her work on When the Bow Breaks and Coming of Age and Skin of Evil and We'll Always Have Paris. And
it was directed by Robert Scherer. I wonder if they're related.
Yeah, I didn't look into that. Possibly. Seems likely.
I think their last names are technically spelled differently, but it might just be when we're looking at here.
Yeah,
information-wise.
Yeah, they are. One is spelled with a C.
Yeah.
Because English is fun like that. This is the last thing we're going to see for a bit because she reportedly left the writing staff because she didn't get along with Maurice Hurley, but then she came back for this and Pen Pals, and then it's going to do more stuff in DS9.
So where Maurice is less of a factor.
And we've got way too many guest stars. Just a buttload of guest stars. So I'm going to mainly mention the few important ones, one I find interesting, and try to be as brief as humanly possible.
Yep.
Because it's not one of these, there's a conference room full of aliens sort of episodes.
Yes, it's not quite Journey to Babel, but... or Babel, but it's still got a bunch of people with crazy makeup going on.
So Matt McCoy is playing Devanani Raul, which is just like a Batman villain name.
Kind of. Like a Thorn or the Penguin,
Yeah. So imagine Batman just like, Raul.
What have you done, Raul? You've sacrificed all your own men for what? To win the contest here. I now own a wormhole.
Well, yeah. So McCoy has had a long-running career. Been in LA Confidential, Police Academies 5 and 6.
And Beethoven's 4th.
Some sort of sci-fi horror movie called Deep Star 6.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
He had a minor reoccurring role on 2 episodes of Seinfeld.
And it was kind of a side or bit or guest actor in basically everything in the 90s up to today, it seems. Like Your Honor or The Act of Contrition.
He's been around, and he's got one of those, I feel like I've seen this guy, but it might have also been basically any other white guy.
Yeah. Profiler, partners, odd man out, and so on and so forth here. Yeah, his listing here is pretty extensive.
I was looking up what the hell Deep Star 6 is. It's an R-rated film from 1989. Team of Navy personnel stationed at a temporary base at the bottom of the ocean and tasked with setting up a nuclear missile discovers a huge underwater cavern which houses a giant prehistoric creature.
Hooray!
Yeah, creatures. Critters. We're so afraid of the ocean. It's fun. Okay.
It's big and spooky.
Then Elizabeth Hoffman as Beovane. They say her name a few times. It's like the chairwoman person. She's been in a lot of TV shows and movies. She had reoccurring roles in Little House on the Prairie. Played the lead in 81 horror film Fear No Evil. That sounds just like any horror film from the 80s is insane.
Yes.
She's now best known for playing the mother in the NBC series Sisters.
Mm-hmm. For like 120 some episodes.
Mm.
She also showed up a couple times in Stargate SG-1 as Dr. Catherine Langford.
Yeah, Langford. Good old Langford. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to be bad with some of these names. Scott Thomas as Gross. No,
David
Thompson.
Gross to you.
Yeah. Scott Thompson as Gross. Thompson is also a Police Academy veteran, having been in Police Academy 1, 3, and 4. Oh my god. As well as having roles in The Greatest American Hero, TJ Hooker, and RoboCop, which we just talked about.
Yes, bleached blonde thug. Uncredited. Oh, he's also in Ghoulies.
Yeah. Like, all these guys were just, like, in everything. It's really hard to talk about the career of a character actor because it's just like he was in one episode of 2,000 series.
He did have a regular role in Spaghetti Family, which I've never heard of before.
Spaghetti Family. Oh my god. What the hell is what are we doing? TV is dead. We killed it. Then, just because I thought he was fun, Kevin Peter Hall is playing Leor, who they barely say his name. He is notable for being over 7 feet tall, and having played the Predator in both Predators 1 and 2, Harry and the Hendersons, and any large monster character in most movies for quite a while.
So, he was also, in Mazes and Monsters. It's Goreville.
Yeah, he is just a very, very large man. And he gets a lot of work as very, very large characters.
Unfortunately, he's passed away, but, his last role was Highway to Hell. I've suddenly got some AC/DC in my head here. Da 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 da.
And before we all break into song again, we've got a story to go over. I'm sorry, you can probably hear how enthusiastic I am about this episode in my voice.
Just remember those visuals and keep rolling.
I think it's a problem also because the DS9 made the wormhole look pretty good. This one did not.
Yep.
I guess it was impressive with, like, this is the first time we see a wormhole. Oh my god. But now that we have, like, DS9 to compare it to, it's like, what is this? what is this thing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I will say it is an interesting design, and it may be, in terms of what a wormhole might actually look like, might be better, but, it's still, doesn't really compare in terms of wow factor.
Yeah. So I get to Troy, who is having a bad day. And to make it worse, she can't get the computer to understand that she wants real chocolate instead of computerized chocolate. And I'm not sure why you're asking the computer for something that it's incapable of making.
Though, maybe with the right overrides and enough sarcasm, it'll work, right?
Yeah, I want real chocolate, fermented beans, worker abuse,
All that.
real chocolate.
How did the Federation figure out ways to get around horrific working conditions in those sort of situations?
Probably because they have little robots that just do stuff. Like, the promise of automation.
Maybe we should do that. Have robots that like do all these horrific jobs that get people killed and are just the worst.
Yeah, we could do a lot of that, but then then those people wouldn't have jobs, and that would be terrible.
Well, what about a basic income of some sort?
No, that would be bad. That would be un-American or something.
We're like in a Central American country here. Is it?
Well, then that would be communism, and we can't have that. So we'd have to have the CIA probably assassinate someone.
Dang it! Not again.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the episode.
Anyway, Troy's having a bad time, and she is doing her one defining character trait, which is bitching about chocolate.
Kind of true.
This is what the writers have decided to do instead of give her a character for the first 3 seasons.
Chocolate.
Picard calls her to the plot, where they are having a reception with a bunch of delegates who are being hosted for negotiations of what appears to be the only stable wormhole in existence.
Oh, well, that's pretty neat. Kind of convenient that it's right here by a planet.
Yeah, I know. It's like somebody planned it or something. I guess that's later.
Yes. This one's not artificial.
This was their first try, and then they were like, I don't know if I like the look of these dudes. We're going to go be gods somewhere else.
Yeah, these folks, they're kind of not interesting. Or they just like to play shuffleboard all day or something. I don't know. We need a spiritual people that have more interesting hobbies, like rhythmic breathing, I guess.
Yeah.
Burning scrolls. There we go.
Troy is introduced to the rest of the cast. We have Biavani. I'm trying to remember how they pronounce her damn name. I'm sorry, it's been a minute since I saw this. I try to remind myself how they pronounce these things, but then I'm staring at how they spell it, and it's just like gibberish. It is letter gibberish.
Well, I guess this one sort of has a India-esque sort of spelling routine here. So, Bhavani?
I think so, yeah.
You can just call it Premier.
It's not Bhavani. Yeah. Premier Bhavani, who is the representative of the planet whose wormhole this is, and they're selling. Interesting concept here.
Well, it's like selling the exclusive rights to or something like that. So, it's technically still in their space.
To manage and trade and etc.
Yeah, to maybe build a cool space station in front of, that sort of thing.
We got Mendoza, who's the Federation's head negotiator. Leor, who's just big and cool looking, but is otherwise mostly unimportant.
His head is huge, too.
And then... yeah, he has a huge head. He's basically a Protoceratops. And Devanali Ral, who appears with just behind everyone and with a woman hanging off his arm. They're like, this is Devanali Ral. It's like James Bond. It just rolls in with a model.
Yeah, don't mind her. She'll be gone by the next act. And it's fine.
Yeah. She's here to denote him as a high-value male. Raul is what Mendoza describes as a hired gun. He's a negotiator who somebody else just hired to represent them. In this instance, the Crystallians.
I always, thought at least it seems like an interesting race that must seem to be some semi-major power in this region of space, but they don't really ever show up again. So, yeah.
So, given the name, they're either crystals or Zoidbergs.
Why not both?
Yeah, crystal Zoidbergs. So everyone clusters around the window to see the wormhole. They have way better effects than DS9, as I've said. It appears, it builds up space gook, and then the event horizon accretion disk blobs out on a regular schedule so they can, predict when they're going to be able to make it visible.
The material around it heats up and off or something. I don't know.
So the delegation sits down to business. Ivani's people come from a poor world, except now they got a wormhole. But they don't have space travel because their planet is basically uninhabitable by any other humanoid race. So they want someone else to manage the thing for them because they just are not that big of a spacefaring power to take full advantage of something like this.
Yeah, so I guess they're not pre-warp, but they just don't go into space. They know how to, maybe.
Yeah, they just don't do much.
It's like, yeah, we're fine just being
It's
on
like,
our
why
own.
would we leave? We live in such a specific environment that we can't go anywhere, so why try?
Yeah, the Premiere even has the sort of, breathing thingamajigs on her cheeks to, sort of denote that she's from a alternative sort of environment.
Just as they begin negotiations, a Ferengi ship arrives with Damon Goss. He and his companions are very annoyed they weren't invited, but they have fun jumping into the negotiations anyway.
Would you like some chairs?
Yeah, where are chairs? Where's the chairs? Who gets us chairs? This thing is like, it's kind of funny, but it also just feels like really bad improv.
Kind of.
Later, Troy looks up Rawl in her office right before he just randomly shows up. They have a very, very weird energy. Like, they, story-wise, have just met, but they talk like they've known each other forever, which I think is supposed to be natural chemistry, but he is so creepy that it doesn't come across as natural chemistry. It comes across as like an old groomer has found his victim again.
A little bit, yeah. And that might not be so far from the truth here.
So he's sent his traveling companion home because he got horny for Troy. And, it's a really great sign when someone just immediately dumps whoever he's with. It's like, no, I'm going to have sex with you now. I've sent my other person home in anticipation of this.
So you should be happy, right?
Yeah. He does some really creepy things with her hair and says, you're going to go have dinner with me. Every single thing with them is creepy as hell. And I'm going to be mostly mentioning it in passing because it's, as much as it's the central point of the episode, it's actually not that important to the overall story.
It just leaves you unsettled.
Yeah, just every time they're on screen, it's being written like it's some sort of romantic interaction, but it is just a guy being really weird and creepy.
I'm suddenly reminded of Khan back in Space Seed, where he's being all sort of weird and hyper dominating, and it's like, yeah, similar energy, a little different here, but similar energy.
But Khan's like supposed to be a like megamaniacal villain. And this guy is supposed to be like a tortured soul.
But, maybe he's not a tortured soul.
So we get Picard, Data, and Riker hanging out with Mendoza after some negotiations. Riker mentions Rawl's probably the most dangerous opponent, which then Mendoza goes, oh, you know what you're doing, sir, in a sort of,
Instinctual level.
No, I had a joke, but now it's not coming to me. It's not working. Yeah. He goes, you play poker. Because, negotiations are just like poker, but with wormholes instead of chips.
And Riker's like, what's that? Ha ha!
You've been bluffed, Rikerd. Data thinks they need to send a ship through the wormhole because they need data from the unmanned probe, lacks the capacity to identify stuff, so they need to go through and look at it, because if they're not risking their own lives, they can't get enough information.
So I guess there's no automated shuttle programs in this era of time, so.
Yeah. Picard wants to make sure that it's safe, but, it seems like it's an okay mission to send them on the next day with Data and Geordi.
If something happens, on the far side of the wormhole, it's okay if we lose them, it's fine.
Yeah. This keeps happening, and they just really need to make one shuttlecraft-sized probe that has a good sensor array on it, because they send out, this is a Mark 17 probe that can detect subspace whatever the fuck fluctuations. And they're like, well, the probe's just not as good as us just, looking at it.
There is, something to be said about adapting your scanning, on the fly as you are, close to what you're trying to look at. However, if you're just trying to gather all the information, a probe should be good enough.
So the Ferengi, meanwhile, are planning to sabotage the Dr. Arendor. These guys have such names, my god. Gives Gross a distilled blood allergen that he's immune to because it's distilled from his own, like, blood juices. But it's going to create a severe allergic reaction to anyone he touches.
That's actually kind of a cool tech there, and maybe something we should run into again sometime.
They talk about how they're going to go, extend the hand of friendship to the Federation ambassador. Troy and Rawl are in her quarters flirting, heavy air quotes. That's all I'm going to go into there. I hate it. I hate it all. And, like, not even in this, like, I think this is not even like from a modern lens, you can see some red flags. Like, this guy is just creepy as hell.
He is the red flag, and there's red flags growing out of him.
Mendoza staggers into sickbay like he's having an allergic reaction or something,
Yeah, in my headcanon, he never actually shook Goss's hand, but got sick off of something completely unrelated, like Data cooked him something.
Yeah, he just had a bad meal, and he kind of looks like that. So he's not life-threatened, but he's going to be out of the negotiations for a bit. So Picard assigns Riker to take over because, poker.
You're ready for the big diplomacy chair, Riker. Go for it.
The Ferengi are upset that Picard's going to send a team through the wormhole, and they want to send their own people. So, fine. If the Enterprise sends out a shuttle and the Ferengi send out a shuttle, they both go into the wormhole. There's more negotiating. Rawl's strategy is a bit of dick, like be a dick to everybody. That's my negotiation strategy. I read the big book of how to be an 80s business douche.
Be as hostile as possible and then make a deal.
Yeah. He and Troy have personal time. They talk about Riker a lot. He might be bi, but I certainly don't want to claim him. He can stay over there.
So you and Riker, are you still attached? Just in case.
Is there a chance we might get him into? No, I'm seeing from your face that's a no.
All right, never mind then.
He's also part Betazoid. He's 1/4 Betazoid, so he can also sense emotions. But it's always made him feel isolated for some reason. And he hides it and just uses it to get an advantage in negotiations. He's also like, this is why I need someone like you to fix me.
The biggest red flag of all.
Yeah. Troy does want to fix the broken boy, but she's like, you're lying to people about your psychic abilities. Something. It doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly.
Well, it's maybe some of the ethics. If people know that you have psychic powers, they might realize that when interacting with you and adjust their strategies accordingly. But if they don't know, well, then their internal struggles and monologues and all that are assumed to be private. Yeah,
but you get into a problem here. Like, what are the ethics of fucking trade negotiations? They don't seem to be. It's weird. It's that good old war problem. If you all are doing the stuff enough to agree on this whole set of rules, you probably don't need the negotiation in the first place. So Geordi and Data make it to the other side of the wormhole. They aren't where they're supposed to be. Wormhole was supposed to send them to the Gamma Quadrant, but they're in the Delta Quadrant, and something is going weird.
So if we stay here, we might find ourselves either getting assimilated by the Borg or running into some aliens that only live for 7 or 9 years or something like that there. And, that might just go awkward.
And they're weird. They're like years away from those things at this point. Troy and Crusher have their very, very weird workout scene with their strangely 80s workout clothes.
Now, the secret of these workout clothes is that they have the underlayer jumpsuit sort of thing going on there, form-fitting and all that. But on top of those, they have bathing suits that they're wearing backwards to, draw attention to certain assets.
Well, just to make it look more future-y, You can't tell it's a bathing suit. They talk about boys and nothing else.
Which I guess this is the place to do
So
it.
yeah, basically everyone just agrees that Troy and Raul should keep fucking each other. That seems to be the basic gist of this
You seem
conversation.
to have an endless stream of bad days, Troy, and despite your misgivings with this guy, you seem slightly more happy right now, so keep it up.
Yeah. So Raul does some minor manipulation of Leor and convinces him that it would be better for his people to let someone else deal with the bureaucracy of running a wormhole because they're all like scientists. Then they trade some other building resources to him in exchange for like future wormhole usage.
Oh, I guess that's a reasonable way to sort of approach this, co-op somebody else's bid.
Yep. So now they've just got Raul, the Federation, and the Ferengi in the running. In the Delta Quadrant, the Forge thinks that something's going wrong and it's destabilizing the wormhole, and he tries to convince the Ferengi to leave, but they won't because they are argumentative. So Data and Geordi enter the wormhole right before it's supposed to reappear, and then it does, and the Ferengi goes, haha, everything's great, I'm great, and then the wormhole flings itself away into space.
Well, I guess we're stuck here, or we got to figure out when it's going to come back, if it does. Or, who knows, maybe we'll start our own colony somewhere. Maybe find some primitives and sell...
Yeah, oh well, time to go do a Man Who Would Be King. So, Raul and Troy, back again. Now they're having an argument about how he's an empath in an unethical way because he's negotiating with it. He doesn't see it any different from being really good at reading body language or something, which he's kind of got a point.
It's like,
because he's not a full telepath. He's not like reading people's inner thoughts and whatever. He's getting like emotional cues from people.
This person seems nervous. This person seems confident. This person seems confused.
So he gets mad and runs away.
Well, I guess that's the end of the relationship. Troy, you're free.
In 10 forward, he decides that he's going to go manipulate Riker. He calls him weak for not being able to lock down Troy, and Riker just dunks on him. He's like, you're a weird little creep, and we don't have those kinds of relationships in the future. You're weird, and I wish you all the luck in the world. Goodbye, you strange, creepy man.
So Riker is the real hero in this episode.
Yeah, I think it's just such it's an interesting, like, they're both written a little bit cringy, but like this is way more in line with how we've seen future relationships presented to us. Mm-hmm. So this idea that Raul's bringing in of like, I have fundamental ownership over the person that I'm interested in sleeping with is just like weirdly backward for everything else we've seen. And then Riker just digs that in of like, hey, if you can make a person that I care about happy, more power to you.
You're being kind of weird, but whatever.
Polycule has not yet entered the popular consciousness, but if it had, Star Trek would definitely have been written that way. So the Ferengi suddenly move in to attack the wormhole.
Oh.
It will do nothing, but it will destroy the shuttle if it happens to come back while they're shooting at it. So Worf has to shoot their missiles out of the air.
Wait, you can do that?
Apparently. I mean, they just say that they fire missiles, not torpedoes. Yeah.
Weird.
So Gross is adamant that they are not being given a fair chance, and if they can't have the wormhole, no one can. Haha. They're accomplishing nothing, but sure.
You're just causing trouble here. Calm down.
So Raul uses the distraction from the Ferengi to negotiate the rights to the wormhole. He's like, oh, the Federation is so violent. Look, they're fighting. They're fighting with the Ferengi over there.
It's going to bring all this to your doorstep, so deal? Okay.
He goes out and goes like, hey, I got the rights to the wormhole. If you back off, I'll let you use it for cheap. And they go, oh, ha, cool.
Oh, well.
Troy calls foul because, no one in this situation was tense or nervous. It's just like everything was planned and they were all doing a stage play. Goss protests, but Raul's just doing a negotiation.
Sometimes you have to have a little theater in order to get people to, get up and move.
She also goes, hey, I have a conflict of interest. I know this guy's a telepath, and now I've told you all without his permission. I feel so much better.
I did promise before to not tell people about this because why not, I guess. But, I've broken that promise and we're now broken up. Ha!
Yeah. I told people it had literally nothing to do with what's going on. Him being an empath would not have changed this situation. This is something that anyone could have orchestrated. So I think she's just sort of being a dick.
Kind of.
But, like, he is a terrible person, so we don't see it that way. But, like, there's still a discussion to be had here.
It's like, well, I guess you're getting revenge? Sort of.
Sort of. So the shuttle appears. Geordi tells everybody the wormhole's useless and unstable. Raul just spent a lot of space bucks on nothing.
Well, congratulations, Raul. You bought yourself the booby prize here, and good luck.
Yeah. He goes, it's okay. I honor my contracts.
And by honor his contracts, he goes back to the Chrysalians, and they're like, we have to do what now? For uselessness?
Yeah. Sorry, boys.
And you still expect us to pay you all the money we offered? Really?
Troy sees Raul off. He's glad he got called out because she makes him want to be a better man, etc., etc.
Raul, I think it's over. You don't have to go through the song and dance.
The Ferengi want to know where their people are, and Picard tells them to head that way for about 80 years. Haha, 2 people are isolated in a completely unexplored region of space and are probably dead. Yay!
And you're not going to offer to help them out, maybe to build some bridges with the Ferengi here, maybe? That maybe some project to pull the other far end of the wormhole back to where it was momentarily ago to maybe help them get home, maybe. I don't know.
No, the Ferengi are dicks, and we don't care about them.
Also, in terms of psychic powers and mind reading and empathic reading and all that, aren't the Ferengi supposed to be immune to that sort of thing? So Raul's leverage would be completely useless.
We haven't established that. We established that in like 5 more episodes.
Okay. Very well.
As of now, the Ferengi don't have a weird brain that makes it difficult for telepaths to do anything with them.
Yeah, they're...
And it doesn't even really come up later, so...
Yeah. No, it does come up in DS9, weirdly enough. Anyway.
So, I don't know, this sucks.
Yeah.
This all sucks. Everything everyone did in this episode sucked.
It's like, well, I guess Picard gets off all right, as well as Geordi and Data, and Worf just kind of there in the background.
Yeah,
so they're fine.
Yeah, I think fundamentally we have a bit of an issue of like, it's never really fully explained to us what the stakes of this situation are. It's like the Federation would love to get this contract and be able to have whatever with the wormhole. If they don't, what exactly is going to happen? We don't know. They have to pay someone else to explore the wormhole. They don't get to do quite as much science.
I guess.
Is this an actual existential threat? How worried should we be about this situation?
Yeah, I suppose if the Ferengi had the exclusive rights to the wormhole, and they could potentially prevent Federation ships from going through it all. It's like, yeah, everyone else gets to pay. You guys just straight out no. In which case, they'd have to get all the information secondhand, which means the Federation doing more commerce with other players out in the galaxy. And the Federation doesn't much care for commerce generally. Doing the whole post-scarcity stuff kind of convinces you that maybe it's a whole big scam, really. So that's like, there'd be a sort of a pressure point for the Ferengi to encourage the Federation to be more like them in that case. While, and if not, well, you just don't get any of the goodies and or information from the far side. And what more, I guess there's also the possibility that there's maybe some, a major power on the far side, like some all-powerful dominion or something like that, that could have a keen interest on the goings-on of this side of the galaxy, one way or another, and being either hostile or friendly with them would depend on the early interactions there. And if you're unable to go through the wormhole, but other people are, they can very much poison opinion about you to any major powers over there.
Yeah, we know why the Ferengi shouldn't win. Just sort of explicitly. We don't really get we don't get much information on why it would matter if anybody else won.
Well, I guess the Chrysalians are just kind of a non-issue in terms of we know nothing about them.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with them.
Leor's folks, seem generally cool in terms of, we're pure scientists, which might, discourage, diplomatic activity being a thing with folks on the far side, as they'll just be going through to study things, and they might share the information with the Federation, but I don't actually know what their information sharing policies are. And if they're, looking to maybe keep certain things to themselves, they might prevent anyone else from making use of it, until they sort of have the science that they're trying to sort out well sorted, given discoveries on the far side. Or they might not find anything interesting, and and that's, I guess, less of a bad situation for the Federation in that case, because they're like, yeah, just come on through, it's fine.
So I think narratively it's a little confusing because the only character that we're given enough information about to possibly root for at all is Raul, and he's definitely not presented as the guy we're supposed to be rooting for.
So yeah,
he's even doing all the complicated, we don't even get a lot of, Riker. Riker could be doing some cool negotiation tactics and whatever, but he's not. He doesn't.
It's like, well, you're good at poker. You can do this job. It's like, okay, let's, all right, we're kind of glossing over a lot of stuff there, and other things happen.
Yeah, this is just poker, negotiations, high-stakes negotiations for whatever, just poker. Don't worry about it.
No other framing is allowed because that's all we're doing here, just poker every day.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kepler, do you like poker? Poker.
I've never been able to play very well.
Poker. I've only been decent against AI opponents there.
I'm terrible at AI opponents. That's why I always liked the original Red Dead, because if I lost the poker game too many times, I could just kill everyone in the bar and then leave.
And because you're the main character, there's not a whole lot of consequences for that.
Yeah, doesn't really matter. So I think that this episode, interestingly, I don't think it means to, but I think it accidentally says some stuff about marginalization and some things in there, because the way that it portrays Raul and his relationship with his empathic powers is a very isolating, othering experience that he hides from a lot of people, which is a way that you can look at a lot of marginalized communities, especially if you're using it as a queer allegory, but it has things that you could map onto a lot of other stuff.
This is, I guess for this episode, this is generic marginalized community goes here. Pick one.
Yeah. It's kind of like the X-Men. So him kind of this whole discussion, there's two weird discussions going on here of does he have an unfair advantage that for some reason it's wrong for him not to disclose to people that he is trying to do business with? And then this whole essentially outing situation that we have with Troy. Because that's a weird one.
Yeah.
She is out to everyone, and she has this relationship with this guy mostly because they are so similar and have the same thing going on. And she feels like hiding it is wrong for some reason that's not particularly well disclosed. It's not explained particularly well.
Well, I'll get back to that, but continue.
Yeah. Mostly that it's it's unfair for you to have this negotiation advantage, which is a weird one on a lot of levels. Like how do you denote a negotiation advantage in something like this, and why do you have to disclose it? Like, does the Federation disclose like all of the numerous advantages it has for just being like a random large player over some of these other people, etc.? Like, nobody's coming to this completely equal, and that idea is very strange, and I think plays into a lot of the ways that we perceive minority groups as like, well, everyone's completely equal, everyone's coming to this from exactly the same equal place, so nobody should be able to complain about it.
And if you do, well, then you're the one who's causing the problems.
So it's actually a very weird thing that hits me kind of wrong, that her like hero ending is outing this guy in front of everyone and going like, there, I feel better about this.
And now you should too.
And then sort of the ending is him like, I'm glad you outed me because now I don't have to hide my identity anymore, which is such a very frickin' cishet way of talking about this kind of thing. If you look at it with a queer perspective, it's like you're hiding something about your identity from other people, something that historically has been portrayed as threatening and dangerous, which is mostly why we consider it to be a bad thing that you're hiding it from the people around you. And then someone else who's not hiding it because they are in a position where they don't have to as much for their day-to-day life decides that they can out you because it's been better for them, and they being out to everyone around them makes them feel more safe and secure, therefore they should do it to you so that everyone feels more safe and secure around you. And you wind up with problems in this kind of allegory because like having psychic powers is definitely like a complete difference from other people that does make you relate to the world differently and could give you like advantages, disadvantages, privacy concerns. Something like being a queer person has had so much fear-mongering around it that it can be considered something dangerous, even though it's definitely not. It's the same sort of problem that you run into with, like, you know, the X-Men as a random representation of a marginalized group, because, like, you know, mutants do have world-ending abilities, which is not something that you get with, you know, normal people who need civil rights.
Yes. You know, you have you crazy powers. I exist and I love who I love. I'm not sure where the crazy powers are coming from, but oh, never mind then.
I mean, they definitely talk about queer people like we all have crazy powers. Like, I mean, you just seeing one makes you immediately want to give up all of your cishet ways. We're so cool.
You're just too radical, man.
Yeah, we're so neat and cool, and you can't resist just trying to be like us no matter what. So it's better for you if we're just not here.
Yeah. If I wander down the street and point at someone and then like give them the look, suddenly they too are bi.
Yeah.
That's totally how it works. And same goes with like using the same public restroom and being at the same table with them. So, you know.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. You don't want to catch it.
I wanted to step back to maybe a little bit of Troy's motivations. They're not great still, but they are. I think that it is a situation where the more she sort of thinks about his revelation to her, the more she realizes that early on when she was being so easily wooed by him, that was a case where, you know, he was picking up on her kind of needing a change, you know, something to shake up her life, to make her feel happy, and was just being completely manipulative right from the get-go with her. That, you know, he seemed to be knowing exactly what she needed in that moment emotionally, and it's like, oh wait, he knew because he was feeling my emotions. And also we know from interactions between her and her mom that when she's interacting with someone with psychic powers, she can actually do telepathy. And there's, I guess, an easier connection to be made between two empaths accordingly that she didn't realize was potentially happening there. And so she might be feeling betrayed, used, and basically, forced into a relationship that if she had been, of a clearer mind and not having her buttons pushed so easily, she probably wouldn't have gotten it into. And so it might be a case that she's still not maybe doing the right thing here, but this is more of a, I need to hurt you because I'm feeling, like you're just going around hurting everyone, but especially me.
See, I think that this is a particular point that I feel like is important to make in this sort of thing. Because we tend to think of certain rights of marginalized communities to be so malleable that we don't even think about the fact that we can also use these things against each other.
Indeed.
We've picked up the idea, we've all internalized the idea from the general world that your rights and ability to be respected and treated as a full person are subject to your behavior in a way that we have now started to unexaminedly use against one another anyway. So what you have in this is, if she's doing it because she feels hurt by this person, she's basically decided that she gets to use the weapons of the oppressor, the outing and otherization of this person, because he's no longer operating within the prescribed rules that she does, and were then ascribed by those same oppressive elements. And she now gets to out this guy because he was a bit of a dick. And this is a problem that you can see all over the place, like in and outside of these communities of like, I don't feel like I have to respect this person's chosen name because they're a bit of an asshole. Or it feels like it's okay to suddenly start misgendering someone because they're a dick and we can use that against them. And this doesn't just happen internally to the queer community either. This is like if a straight cis person says, I actually prefer this name, and then everybody makes fun of them because they feel like it's a dumb name. You're doing exactly the same thing. You're not using someone's chosen name. Constantly misgendering a cis person because they've been a dick and done it to trans people, you're still intentionally misgendering someone. You're doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, there's a whole toolbox of behaviors and things one can do that one shouldn't do, no matter where you are in terms of being, in a marginalized community or not, and independent of how much you like someone or not. Just don't use them, guys.
So I feel like this is actually a pretty good representation of that. She feels like she's been wronged by this person, and there's some definite arguments that she could have been. We don't have enough information on how the psychic stuff works, but he's definitely a generally manipulative person, and we've been shown that. But the fact that she feels wronged by this person doesn't then give her the right to suddenly be able to treat him however she feels like, and use that as a weaponization against him. If you read both of them as, queer people or allegories for queer people, then she is using her basic, acceptance that she's gained in her community and weaponizing that against someone else who she perceives as not behaving correctly.
So, Troy, you simulated too much and you've forgotten your roots. I guess also there is an alternative way she could have gotten revenge on him, and that would be to not mention his empathic abilities at all, while also revealing that he's manipulated the whole situation. And that would have been very straightforward and would not touch on something that's kind of irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. He did manipulate the situation. How he manipulated the situation is somewhat irrelevant to the point.
And, if anyone asks why she's kind of miffed at him, she's like, well, he manipulated me too, and, got me, into an intimate situation without without me maybe being fully on board with the situation.
And this is also a weird one on, like, he makes the good point that, like, does she reveal to every alien they talk to that they have an empath on board who's reading whether or not they're lying?
Nope.
Which is exactly what she does in the end, and it's very unclear whether they ever told the Ferengi that this was a possibility.
Mm-hmm. So, this is there's maybe some ethics to be sort of sorting out through all this.
This is kind of a discussion of, like, fairness that gets into such a broader concept that it's a little difficult to discuss in this concentrated of a way. But inherent difference in physical capability is something that's impossible to really factor into fairness on this kind of level. One, it's ridiculous to start talking about fairness in a trade negotiation anyway, when you were presenting yourself as an 80s show with a bunch of, like, 80s business douche coded stuff happening. Like, the idea of, like, fairness in a trade negotiation is kind of laughable to begin with. But
it's outside the scope of our problem.
Yeah. Even if you take that as a given, that this should be fair, then how do you denote fairness in this way? He is empathic and can read people's emotions, which definitely gives you some advantage in knowing whether someone's lying or not. Riker is incredibly good at, facial control and reading people's body language and bluffing and telling when someone else is bluffing in that same kind of way. He just developed it as a skill instead of having it as, an empathic ability.
Indeed.
So where's the difference here? It's kind of like this discussion that you have with like sports and things. You try to make everything fair for an Olympic event, but everyone has different body shapes and capabilities and things, and minor physical differences and mutations can give you severe advantages or disadvantages that you just cannot control for.
Indeed. So, I guess in terms of, things like psychic powers, there's maybe something to be said about having a system of ethics put in place that would also, I guess, to a certain degree, need to apply to things that, like, what you said with Riker, just reading body language. That you can, there's maybe a difference between making a good guess versus straight out, knowing. But there is still something to be said about how you use that information and in which cases is it okay to use it versus those where it's not. If there is, you're facing down a Romulan, battlecruiser that might kill everyone if you guess wrong on terms of their motivations, that might be a situation where, okay, having all the information is maybe a good idea versus I want to sell this person a used car. Where having all that information might not necessarily be providing a strong need in terms of being fully, I guess, exposed to the person you're negotiating with.
Well, like, you could make this fully fair if you wanted to. They obviously don't. You could just have everyone send in a list of the stuff they're willing to trade, and then they just, choose which one they want. In a giant list. instead of having to have an actual, negotiation where everybody sits down and talks about it.
I guess that's might be one of the reasons folks have, especially in the West, given up on bartering to a certain degree, and in even more of a strong push towards online shopping. As wow, I don't have to deal with someone who's trying to get me to buy more stuff. Okay. This relieves my stress so much, and I can make an informed decision given what I'm presented.
Of course, the online shopping is now trying to make you buy more stuff.
True. Yes. But then we get back to that whole ethics thing. Because manipulating people based on, other things you can learn about them is a big industry. If this person a certain age group, are they from a certain location? Do they have that interest or that interest? Who are they more likely to vote for? Who are they following on social media? Who are they interested in terms of, general thought leadership or whatever? All of these things can be sort of combined together to create profiles for folks. And in the future, there might be, systems in place that are able to, read your brainwave patterns or something like that as part of, some useful tool to interact with your computer or something like that. And, is that information now going to be added to the pile here? And all these sorts of things sort of, allow, large, correlated systems to build a profile for you that can make educated guesses about what you're going to decide, independent of what you're actually thinking about and doing in the moment. And yeah, there's sort of a huge bit of, problems with that model, because suddenly you're no longer making choices. You're following through the system as now being designed to you and as it is being built to basically, push you into a specific behavior in terms of your buying habits and other big decisions here. And so suddenly you're not really living a life. You are being part of a mechanism, effectively. And, that kind of sucks.
I think that brings up another interesting question with stuff like this, which is kind of what's being said about him in this episode is, how much individual responsibility do you have? How unethical are you as an individual being for being good at operating in a fundamentally unethical system? Like, if you have a system set up that's already completely unethical as a system and does terrible things as a system, that you as an individual don't have any particular power to manipulate or change or escape, but you happen to be good at, living and doing things within that system, are you as an individual being unethical for being good at surviving and living in a system that is fundamentally unethical?
So I'm suddenly reminded of that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism phraseologies and their variants. That, there is, structural change that needs to be done in order to get out of the general unethical situation that we live in. But just living your day to day, for good or bad in terms of your own ability to do such, isn't necessarily going to be unethical because you are being forced to interact with a system that is unethical.
Yeah, it's the good old guy in a well cartoon.
Yeah. But yet you participate in society. I am very intelligent.
I think that generally the idea of no ethical consumption is kind of there to combat the reappropriation of resistance under capitalism into something that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay if you can buy this thing that boycotts people you don't like and plants trees, and you're fixing the problem by buying these sneakers.
But, never mind that these sneakers were also, put together by a sweatshop in some, Southeast Asian country here. And even the shipping was handled by people that are underpaid. And, maybe a couple people fell off the ship during the process for unknown reasons. There's all sorts of horrific things that can be still involved here, even though there is maybe some minor goods being sort of, attached to it. So it is a less bad option as opposed to the obviously terrible options. But yeah, so there's maybe a lot more to unpack here, but we do only have.
Yeah, I didn't love this episode, and I didn't like the way that this guy was presented. I didn't like how they dealt with him as presented, and they sort of just really oversimplified some sort of very knee-jerk reaction that you could have to, like, oh, this guy can read people's minds? That's unfair.
If he was, maybe, a quarter some other aliens species that also had psychic powers, so that you don't necessarily know that it's just empathy, that might be a little bit more interesting in terms of episodes. But in terms of, he's like Troy, but like half power even then. It's like, well, why is this a problem?
Yeah. They have to. This is a very fundamental problem with marginalization allegory that everyone hits to one degree or another, because you just do not have the time or bandwidth or scope in a like hour-long TV show to introduce an entirely fictional marginalized group, explain the history of their marginalization, demonstrate how it is a outcome of societal structures that have very little to do with them or their people as individuals, and create this entire basically history of racism in a fictionalized way that is not just copy-pasted racism from our world, which would then kind of like ruin the point of it being an allegory. Yes. So what you do is give the person an individual shorthand, like a decided, slightly scary biological advantage. But by doing that, you've then created the very thing that you're trying to criticize, which is this idea that there is a fundamental biological difference that we are trying to deal with or combat, instead of a set of systems that are enforcing differences that do not particularly exist.
Yes. So, I guess the structure of TV in this era is just really frustrating, isn't it?
Well, it's still a problem that you have now, but it's a storytelling issue that you keep hitting, because you have to give an actual reason that these people are different and that you might be a little scared of them. And by doing that, you're giving them an actual biological difference and an actual way that they are scary. Instead of, you've made up a large amount of stereotypes that make them scary so that you can justify doing bad things to them.
Yeah, well, there are other episodes of Star Trek that, tackle this sort of thing a bit better. I'm remembering a particular episode of Voyager where B'Elanna is like getting flashbacks to experiences she never experienced, and through that she learns that there is a whole genocide against some people that were culturally different from the folks that they've been interacting with recently.
And
so it's sort of a the first-hand account combined with the viewing things from the oppressor's side, while also having an in with one of the oppressed sides. It provides a bit more better dynamic in terms of this is maybe a little ridiculous, all the things that they're saying about these people, so don't trust what these people in power are actually saying. But anyway.
Yeah, that's for later. So for right now, I think that we should let everyone go home after the galaxy's favorite game show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the galaxy's favorite game show. We got various folks here who've been racking up all sorts of prizes or points here. We're handing out the prizes. That's what we're doing here. And no, Raul, you can't negotiate for more. We got everything on handle here. All right, let's get going and let's get him out of the way here. The first prize today is the psychic hotline. It goes to Devoni. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Ralph, for using his empathic abilities to manipulate negotiations, Troy, and everybody else, and I guess just having his abilities today. What does he win, Gepwin?
Raul wins a cool costume and a tragic backstory and an arch-villain hero thing, because just like, you're wasting the name on trade negotiations.
Indeed. You could be, as we said before, a Batman villain, or maybe a Batman hero, like a guy that wanders into town. It's like, I'm going to help you take down the Joker, and then he meets the Joker. He's like, wow, my abilities here, they're not of no help. He's just too jokery, or something. Anyway, so yeah, The next prize is the lazy science prize, which goes to the Ferengi in the shuttle for being so distrustful that they missed the really, really obvious. But don't worry, we'll be seeing them again eventually. What do they win, Gapwin?
The Ferengi win research grants from other people because, we know that they're just uber capitalists and they wouldn't do anything if not for profit. So they kind of maybe need somebody else to start funding their science, and then they'll do some science and they might improve as a society.
And well, hopefully they'll find something like that on whatever planet they end up on, and then they can science it up all day long, eh?
Yeah, they'll definitely get somewhere that will improve their lives as people and make them better.
Let's hope so. Anyway, the final prize today is the ethical reflection, which goes to Troy for being confronted with the ethics of using psychic powers for once, and should probably have been confronted about that other thing that we talked about at length. But that didn't actually happen, so got to give out the prizes for what they actually did happen. Well, what does she win, Gepwin?
Troy wins a stepladder for being able to get off of that frickin' high horse for doing exactly the same thing that she's criticizing other people for, and then being like, no, mine's different.
Mm-hmm. I think Picard might eventually help with this down the road, but we'll have to have a much better episode for that. Anyway, that's all we got here today. Feel free to take us away, Gepwin.
Thank you for being here, and everyone for joining us on this, the Galaxy's favorite game show! And next week we have a kind of a dumb episode with a kind of a dumb name.
Is it the alternative factor?
No.
Oh.
Keep going. What other factors we got? Because for some reason, they really love their factors.
So I guess they are factorizing some numbers here.
Yeah, even with Riker's dad, he says you never got used to the sightless factor. It's like, why? No one says factor. No one has ever said factor that way. Why are you writing like this?
Because you want to sound impressive, I guess?
I don't even know what this sounds like. The next episode is the vengeance factor. It's like, what does that even mean? Why?
Well, I guess it's a factor in people's decision-making, maybe?
Yeah, why don't you even just make it something interesting? Like, they love their literary references. Call it From Hell's Heart.
There we go. If you need to have vengeance in there, just call it The Vengeance. That's then you're like, oh, right, well, who's getting vengeance? We don't know. Let's watch the episode and find out.
Star Trek: The Next Generation of Vengeance.
But yeah, so I think there's going to be someone getting some vengeance next episode.
Revenge.
I remember a little bit of it, and it's sort of a... like, oh yeah, there's this thing going on, and
yeah, you'll like. I remember all the bits and pieces, and it wasn't until I rewatched this that they came back together and like, oh yeah, those were in the same episode, weren't they?
So it's like the coming of age from season 1, then.
yeah, another one of those. And it's another one of these ones where they vaporize someone. They just love vaporizing people recently.
Well, I guess if you want someone to be to really feel them in your lungs.
Oh my god, that's so dark. I hate it. Why did you do that?
I could do a lot worse, actually, but sort of a side thing. We created the most cursed magic item in for one of my friends' D&D games. Well, let's just say that it was inspired by a mystification of a horse. Yes.
Oof.
Anyway, horrible disintegrations later. The vengeance factor.
So, vengeance factor. It's not great. We're gonna have some other stuff to discuss, but it's mildly interesting, and it uses AI to condemn a criminal. So that's fun. That's not like a dark dystopia waiting to happen or anything, is it?
No, it's not. There hasn't been multiple movies about that very topic several times already. Either because that'd be unthinkable.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We've reached the computers are magic stage. Anyway, apparently I am suffering the longtime Brooklyn summer plague of the ice cream truck. So next time, The Vengeance Factor, an episode we'll find something to say about.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, gather Riker's heart. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.